Hello there, YouTubers, and my most beloved subscribers, frequent viewers, as well as patrons. It's the 25th of July, year 2026. Both at Australian Eastern Standard Time / Sydney time, as well as local Peking time. Again, I beg your pardon for my stuttering, for my intermittent stuttering, but yeah, I kind of got a bit of refreshments and a bit of boost in my mood and overall level of morale. Hence, therefore, enabling me, to film a sort of a regular stand-alone video in though not so early in the morning, though not so early in the morning, nevertheless. But regardless, during this filming session, I would like to talk about how I imagine one can gain power and therefore more power, more say range and intensity of influence over other people, particularly over other mindless NPCs as a man. Well, as a matter of fact, despite being quite flat broke, it kind of makes me marvel at the fact that I can still somewhat wield some sort of influence, if not also power to sway people's opinions and stance on certain matters, say the ongoing wars and the current affairs, and as well as people, especially those that oftentimes watch my videos, their mindsets. Well, as I can see, somehow my channel, starts, to grow a bit in terms of the number of subscribers. Again, though not necessarily, more views in year 2026 overall speaking. But nevertheless, on the other hand, the longer, or I should say, the more the older I grow, the more I begin to realize how much it actually matters to gain more and more power as a man. And speaking of power, well, in terms of science, in terms of in terms of um, beg your pardon, in terms of physics and chemistry, or physical chemistry, to put it more precisely and accurately. Physics and chemistry tend to they tend to define power as the ability to do work, the power the ability to manifest um, um, energy of various forms in various ways, say wind, solar power, um, potential energy as a result of placing, say, certain objects or certain items, at a height or or say altitude, relative, relative to the sea level, relative to the ground level. Yes, and by placing a certain object or a certain item or a certain, say, chunk or plump of mass of substance or substances, you give such object some potential energy and therefore some power to say once you drop it or you push it um, over the edge and it falls due to gravity, and therefore it gains the power to fall and drop and hence dash against the ground and make some sounds by converting its potential energy into kinetic energy, in terms of physics. Yeah, but enough with the technical terms and the pleasantries. I just want you guys to know that without power and this such saying um, such saying particularly holds true to us men. Without power, you can affect nothing. You can change nothing, and therefore you can achieve nothing. So it is critically essential and vital to have power and know when and how to wield it. Whenever say you run into trouble, you run into moments and hours of distress and say need for help, and this can also go apply to a reverse, a totally reversed situation or circumstance. Say even if you have managed to make yourself someone of importance, someone say like a VIP, like someone say someone important, a slave master, say a politician or someone, you make yourself an oligarch or an elite in a certain field, a certain sector of of business or industries. Even then, even in such scenario, you need to know when to wield and use your or even abuse your power in order to get what you need and what you want. Um, and therefore, many people, especially NPCs, they tend to, they tend to see, they tend to see power slash energy, is something, something associated with a negative um, connotation or a negative, a highly stigmatized um, word that that can suggest those that hunger for power are bad and evil people. But yet and yet on the contrary, not necessarily. Though yes, there are plenty of those that hold and wield a tremendous level and amount of power, say, um, and oftentimes they abuse their power, to do highly highly heinous or say highly atrocious evil deeds. Say you know most say typically speaking, um, by engaging in corruption and and some more often not, say they go, the the they embark on the wicked path of going, PDF. I you if you know what I mean here, but that's kind of beside the point. You know, um, I beg your pardon. But just so you know that without power, you can affect nothing, you can change nothing, and therefore you can achieve nothing. So whatever you do, whatever you are doing right now, you either consciously or subconsciously, you either consciously slash deliberately or subconsciously, aim to gain more power, say making more money, um, upskilling yourselves or leveling up your skill sets by learning something, say a language or several languages, or a certain skill or skill sets in order to level up your level of expertise in a certain field, in a certain subject, or in a certain um, occupation, blah blah blah. You name it. And even if say even if as a black-pilled man, my or at least as a self-proclaimed black-pilled man myself, I if, no matter no matter how much I despise those that those mindless brain dead NPCs, no matter how much I despise how they they daily um, tend to gaslight themselves by saying, "Oh, life is so good, life is so beautiful. I am grateful to be alive." That sort of crap. Um, even no matter how much I despise, how they, gaslight themselves by, you know, by holding the belief and naive mindset that life is beautiful. I'm so grateful to be alive. you know, I still, do whatever I can, to prove myself, out of the out of this, deep hole and piles of shite of misery, and therefore, I I made myself become power hungry, and therefore, the same can apply, to dating, to marriages, to to say to the methods you ought to or you must use in order in you must apply in order say in order to keep your marriages, in order to keep your life together, lest lest it falls apart and you fall victim, to this ruthless and feminazi um, and highly misandrist, um, brainwashed, brainwashed society governed by the by the ever greedy and the ultimately most power hungry entity you can find in the universe we call the matrix. Say there are I see plenty of, for example, I see plenty of guys, dudes, men, who who oftentimes say rant and complain about how beaten up, how ruthlessly their girlfriends or their wives, their spouses abuse them, use them, and you know eventually left them, say by divorcing them, or or say, or the so-called, not exactly so-called, but if you catch my drift, that should that one trendy um, buzzwords prevalent in the whole manosphere should instantly come to your mind, which is getting divorced, raped, um, you know, by their spouses. A lot of men, yes, oftentimes complain about getting divorced, raped by their ex-wives or by their ex-girlfriends, blah blah blah. But first of all, you need to you need to first of all come to a realization that in order to avoid, in order to maximally avoid the chance of getting yourselves or having yourselves divorced, raped, you must know how to hold power, how to wield power, and eventually how to assert and maintain control, maintain dominance over your woman, over or and over your women. In the event, say you are a Muslim, you engage you engage um, in um, in um, in 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 polygamy, and I have I have absolutely no problem whatsoever with 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 you know with polygamy. As a man myself, though I do advise that you exercise extreme caution, since in most in most countries and regions, um, you know, um, they outlawed, they criminalized the act of polygamy. But I guess those that diving in deep into such a topic qualifies for another video on another day, if God's still willing. But I just want you to know that you get divorced, raped, or say abandoned and abused by your woman. Um, More often than not, it's because that you are powerless. That you let your woman emasculate you, and therefore losing a large part, if not the your whole um, identity, you know um, as a masculine man. Say, or in other words, you let your woman, you willingly, or you either willingly or you either subconsciously, um, you either willingly or you either subconsciously let your woman compromise and undermine your innate built-in masculinity over time during your relationship. Say, that can take many forms. Say, even just one night stand, or long term, or short term hookups, or long term cohabitation, and blah blah blah. But most of the times, I can safely assume with confidence that you let yourselves slide into the sorry state that you are um, right now, mostly due to your own faults, not because of the women, um, but even if the current world of extreme feminazi society and extreme level of misandry do play their part in contributing to the current state of the world, as we can see, the current, say, ruthless and pathetic and evil and wicked and you know and highly unfair world we see in at the present time. But still, more often than not, it is your fault that you let you let your woman erode and compromise your masculinity, and therefore your level and the amount of power you ought to wield and use in order to maintain and assert your dominance and your dominance and masculinity, you know, throughout the whole time of your relationship, you know, and therefore that should give you since how should I put it, a lot of say um a lot of men, they oftentimes cut too much slack to their wives or to their girlfriends or to their spouses, say under the context of common law marriage, aka in other words a long-term cohabitation without actually getting legally married, but in many countries and regions, say, or most typically speaking, say, Australia, New Zealand, and Great Britain, and in some states of of the United States of America, um, you know, you and therefore those men, they just let their wives or spouses or their long-term girlfriends or even just short-term bed buddies get away with instances of disrespect, say by making them look bad or by embarrassing them in front of others, say by saying or by saying some nasty and um, say slanderers or something, or just say plainly talking shit in front of you know outsiders, and blah blah blah. Say, I won't get into too much details or specifics, but that can most typically speaking, um, those sort of toxic um, behaviors, from those wicked women, say can include or encompass, but are not limited to say my men aren't making enough money to buy myself to satisfy my lifestyle, say buying Gucci bags or driving a Lamborghini or a Bugatti, or buying the all those fancy schmancy or fancy schwancy cosmetics, or travel the world, or for holidays at least several times a year, blah blah blah. I'll just give you one simple example of of women, oftentimes um, who oftentimes you know openly and publicly shame and disrespect their husbands, their men, blah blah blah. And that's exactly you know where it all starts. you know you let them get away with minor, you know with instances of disrespect, and then that says you give her an you give her an inch, then she will make it a mile later on, since you let her get away with minor with instances of minor disrespect, and therefore she will likely perceive your kindness, or mistake your kindness as a or patience as a sign of weakness. And many occasions, some men's act of extreme kindness shown to women, in particular, to women with whom they have long-term or just short-term sexual relationship with. They oftentimes, they fear, they harbor the fear of losing access, to sex, to the, the domestic comfort provided, by their women, and that's a weakling's mindset, and you should absolutely abandon it because it erodes and deprives you of your masculine power over your woman or your women. Um, though I'm not saying that I wholeheartedly or fully endorse the enslavement of or say or total control of of women in marriages or blah blah blah. Nevertheless, as a man, in order to earn, you know, earn, in order to earn and prolong and or maintain and therefore therefore um, perpetuate respect from your woman, you must you must learn how to become and stay far from weak. You must learn how to gain and wield and gain and wield power and more power over the course of your entire life. Since power plays a crucial role, a vital role in a man's life, no matter who you are, no matter um, no matter regardless of your nationalities, your ethnicities, your background, your occupations, blah blah blah. The the less power you you possess, the more the more the wicked, those wicked and evil people and the matrix will bully you. You know, and by saying wicked people, wicked those bullies, I mean, you know, human individuals regardless of their genders. That says bullies can include both men and women. Though I guess as men, even if you know, even if in the event that some are bullies, they at least have they we men at least know um, not to cross the bottom line, and have a still carry a bit of principles and you know the spirit of discipline, and therefore retain some honor. And that's but unfortunately, in terms of amongst um, those bullies that are women, you oftentimes see they have they absolutely take no accountability. They absolutely have no principles or disciplines or nor honor whatsoever. And um, well, you don't have to take my word for it. You can just simply search for the videos that documented how women fight, how women torture and abuse their own kind, their own species, They just grab each other's breasts and hairs and even genitals. But you will probably never ever see men grab each other's testicles and dicks and hairs in the event of a fight, say a fist fight, blah blah blah. But that, however, does not say necessarily um, indicate that I condone or encourage bullying, blah blah blah. But still, you know, um, I guess I have talked quite enough for this filming session. So just to summarize, um, it power is just like money, just like women. They are mutual. It all depends. It all comes down to it all depends and comes down to how you use it, how you use them, how you use them to improve your lives, to 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 positively affect and change others' lives, and and therefore it is not wrong to make yourself a little bit more power hungry, since as as a man who has suffered from and experienced a lot of afflictions, a lot of pain, a lot of trauma myself, I can testify, I can attest to you know to you know to such saying, you know with with my own personal life experience, that it is not wrong to want more power, and particularly you know um, particularly um, as a man, since power plays a vital role um, in determining how far you can go in life, how much you can achieve in life, and how much you can enjoy and have fun in life overall as a man. Yeah, so I hope this, and therefore how much you can do to improve, to to change your lives, and therefore someone else's lives for the better. Say, no matter how beaten up, no matter how de- defeated you are or you feel at the moment, it all comes down to your mind, to say, to how you control, how you master your emotions. Though on many occasions I myself, on countless times, fall victim, to my own, to my own depression and debilitating and negative emotions and thoughts, blah blah blah. But still, I guess the key is striking the right balance between between black pill and red pill, and in the I beg your pardon, as shown I beg your pardon, as shown in the icon of Tai Chi, the seeking reconciliation and aiming to strike a balance, the perfect balance and harmony between yin and yang. The say the yes, the balance, striking the right balance between, in between, say, grace and discipline. Yeah. So yeah, I hope I beg your pardon, for not going, for diving in even deeper into more specifics during this filming section, during this filming session about how to gain power, how to maintain and strengthen and gain more power in life as a man. But I guess that's pretty much all I can spit out from my highly traumatized and twisted mind for now pertaining to the topic of how to gain power and how to maintain and gain more power as a man. So yeah, so in case you have found this video helpful, if not also fun, please consider subscribing to my channel or at least smashing a like to my videos and taking a look at my Patreon page and buy me a coffee page. Since I firmly believe you will find something to you will at least find something to your interests and satisfaction there. Um, yeah. If God's still willing, until next time, stay out of trouble, and equally importantly, if not also more importantly, stay far from weak. Stay far from weak. And yeah, until next time, if God's still willing, cheers, have a lovely weekend, and bye. Amen.